待たせてごめんね。あら、ナオトちゃんは？
あいつなら山の手に炊き出しをやるって連絡に行かせたよ。山の手の住人は来ていねえみたいだな。ああ、俺たちの飯なんか食いたくねえってところだろうよ。やっぱり俺は奴らが気に食わねえ。お高く止まってよ。そうだ、いつも俺たちを見下しやがる。遊びとったら必死にやってる俺たちのこと何だと思ってやがって。ああ、お嬢ちゃん、あんたもそう思うだろう。
いえ、私は山の手の人たちをよく知りません。
おい、火事だ。山の手で火が上がってる。みんな消火に行くぞ。すまないが、あんたも手伝ってくれないか。
Hello everybody and welcome to this video in which we are going to talk about Disaster Report 4 and what a special little game this one has proven to be. I didn't really know what to expect going in. It's my first disaster report. I'm not even sure if the previous ones were released in Australia or globally in English. It's been a niche kind of cult series in Japan, but Nipponichi obviously decided to take the risk and localize it, and you can get it on PlayStation 4, Nintendo Switch and possibly PC. I can't be sure, I'll have to check that, but definitely PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. And yeah, it's a really enjoyable little game. It's definitely not a AAA blockbuster by any means. The engine creaks along at times, and if you play it on Nintendo Switch in particular, there are some real issues with the visual engine and all that kind of stuff. But what this game has in abundance is heart and soul, and I will always prefer a game that has creative ideas and tries to do something interesting and different, rather than a game that sticks to what's safe but does it really pretty in AAA. So yes, this is a game I will be wholeheartedly recommending in my review on digitallydownloaded.net when I publish that in the next day or so. But in the meantime, let's have a talk about what it is that I found so attractive about this game. So one of the things about the Japanese culture, which should probably come as no surprise to anybody, is that they are constantly looking towards what will be the next big natural disaster. Japan is a lovely country and in so many ways is just a delight to visit and live in, but one thing that is less than appealing about the country is just how prone it is to natural disasters. Whether it's earthquakes, volcanoes, typhoons, tsunamis or anything else, it is a country that is very prone to natural disasters. And the Japanese take this in their stride in a pretty remarkable way, to be honest. They have this philosophy about life and kind of living with the elements and accepting that sometimes things do go wrong, and when they do go wrong, the people tend to come together in a way which is really quite amazing to watch, to do the best to survive and recover from whatever disaster has hit most recently. So this game really tries to capture that, and it does a really good job of that. You start out on a bus, pretty inconspicuous start, and you create your character, of course, and within a couple of minutes a big earthquake hits, a huge earthquake, which topples the bus, throws you out, and starts to take down buildings around you, which kind of traps you in the city. You're a visitor from outside, and the rest of the game is then spent trying to find a way to survive and escape the city through all kinds of different scenarios, ranging from simple things like having to manage hunger and thirst when the convenience stores that are opened tend to be staffed by people looking to exploit the situation, through to aftershocks, additional mild earthquakes, and of course, some people turning bad or trying to take advantage of the situation to do some very unpleasant things. So this game really kind of moves from one location within this kind of fictionalized Tokyo to another, and in each kind of area that you visit there's a new scenario to deal with, and it slowly builds and builds to the point where you're helping people out, you're making friends with people, and dealing with a pretty wide range of situations. So what does that mean in terms of how to play the game? The best way to describe the gameplay of Disaster Report 4 is that of an adventure game crossed with a walking simulator. So the adventure game stuff first, basically you move from area to area, and in each area there's a domino chain of things you need to do to unlock the door, whether that's proverbial or metaphoric, to the next area. So you'll need to speak to people, you'll need to find items, you'll need to bring certain items to certain people, and by following that chain you'll eventually find the way forward into the next area. And the game's structured that everything kind of takes place in a number of these kind of self-contained areas. Where the walking simulator stuff comes in is that Disaster Report 4 is not difficult by any means. The puzzles, you might need to use a little bit of trial and error to work your way through because they're a little bit obscure at times, and that has to do with some design flaws, but they're never difficult. You'll never find yourself stumped and unable to move on. And the worst that will happen will be you'll need to run around an area a little bit until you just luck on the next part of the sequence of events to move the game forwards. So because these areas are quite small and self-contained, it's never a kind of a painful process to make your way through it. And it really is about following a trail of breadcrumbs, with the overarching narrative being the real focus of the game. Now there are some areas that are quite irritating. There's one area where you need to navigate a boat around some water, and while it's a fine idea because it wants to show you that parts of Tokyo have flooded, and thematically it's quite a strong moment in the game, the boat moves so slowly that making your way around is quite dull, must be said. The other area that really got to me was this kind of stealth area where your character and the person that's following her along gets captured by a couple of drunk men with less than honourable intent, let's put it that way, and you need to butt slide your way through, and we're about to get to some footage of that. You need to butt slide your way around while avoiding their light, and finding a way to cut the ropes and then escape. It's not difficult again, but again you move so slowly that it's kind of a laborious process. But these kind of moments are really easy to forgive within the game, because overall what Disaster Report 4 does really well is tell a really good story about survival, and a fairly unembellished look at what life is like immediately after a big earthquake or a natural event. So what do I mean by that? You would have seen through this video that even though there are aftershocks and moments of kind of abject horror as people are being killed by the earthquakes, this game resists being a AAA blockbuster or a Hollywood film where you would actually see a lot of blood and gore and dirt, and people would get very violent and they'd be swearing at one another, and there'd just be action, 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 action. Disaster Report 4 doesn't do that. It's actually a very subtle kind of storytelling experience, which is more interested in finding out what happened to these people after they went through this particularly traumatic experience. And a really good example of that is there's this little Romeo and Juliet side story that goes on where at one point where two characters who are in love can't see one another because they live on different sides of the track, literally so, and of course the earthquake has inflamed tensions, something's criminal has happened and one of them gets blamed for that, and you need to play detective and solve that crime. And then when you find out who actually did it, it's nicely shocking. It's a nice revelation. So this game is particularly well written. I found all the characters to be really believable and relatable and quite human. It's the human stories in this which is really nice, and I can see why this series has been quite niche in Japan, because it does resist all the temptations to do things the popular way as a blockbuster game would do. But what it does is give people who want something more meaningful from their kind of disaster stories more context and more potency, and that's really, really special. This is one of those games that I just couldn't put down, and I've certainly had a lot to play over the last couple of weeks. Even given isolation, I've had a lot on my plate. I've had Resident Evil 3, I've had Animal Crossing. These are major games that I enjoyed a great deal and have wanted to play a lot. But I kept finding myself coming back to Disaster Report 4 because it is so simple. It just has this lovely kind of X factor where it has all these rough edges, doesn't necessarily play well all the time, and yet it's just so easy to forgive it of those issues for what it does do well. I should also mention that on the PlayStation 4 there's a VR bit, which is technically more impressive than the main game, it must be said. So you put the goggles on and you actually get to watch the city falling down around you from the earthquakes. And the reason to do that is you need to make your way through the levels, but also you need to look for little stickers, and those little stickers give you points, and you use those points to unlock additional costumes for your characters and stuff. So it's a nice addition which isn't on the Switch version. Of course the Switch version does have the portability going for it, and this is a game which is very portable. Save points are nicely close together, and an autosave on top of that makes sure that you don't lose too much progress if you have to put the console down in a hurry. And because it is so simple, the fact that to play, because it's so simple to play, means that the irritations aren't necessarily exasperated by being on Switch, like the lower frame rates and whatever aren't a big issue for this game, because it's not really about that. When I mentioned that it was kind of a walking simulator and adventure game, I probably should have mentioned that it kind of feels like a visual novel in times too. It's not very wordy, so that's why it's not really a visual novel, but that absolute emphasis on storytelling is certainly there. Anyhow, that's basically it for this video. If you hadn't had this game on your radar beforehand, please do put it on there now. It'll surprise you. I wasn't expecting much going into it, and as you can tell, it's going to score very well in my review. So thanks as always for watching my videos. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoy my work, and you won't miss out on any of it. And please do back me on Patreon if you want to directly support me, because we don't do ads and stuff. I won't ever do ads or sponsorships, so really Patreon's the way you can back me, and I can actually live. Thanks as always for watching. We'll see you at the next video.